Aliko Dangote used to be a failure. Yes, a failure. But today, when people hear the name Aliko Dangote, the first thing that comes to mind is wealth, power, and stability. However, that's the thing about success. It tends to conceal failures, making them invisible and irrelevant. Only a few people associate Dangote's name with the risky decisions he made or the failures he faced head-on. Because to most of the world, he is simply just Africa's richest man, the empire builder, the billionaire who turned cement into gold and turned dreams into industries. His name rings with that powerful message every entrepreneur wants to send: I made it. But here's the part nobody talks about. Not every bet Dangote made won. If you carefully look behind the concrete towers of his empire, you would see ventures that crashed, burned, or quietly disappeared. The man whose wealth defines African capitalism has also tasted failure, not once, not twice, but many times. What you're about to hear isn't the cliché and regurgitated story about Dangote's rise to success. This time, we would be looking at the other side of the coin. The part of the story you don't often catch in the headlines, the miscalculations, the forgotten ventures, and the multi-million-dollar losses. This isn't a hit piece, it's a reality check, because in business, even the giants bleed. Dangote's story isn't one of sudden triumph. It's a series of wins and wipeouts, gambles that went wrong, regrets, lessons, and losses. Aliko Dangote was born in 1957 into a wealthy trading family in Kano, Nigeria, and grew familiar with business from a very young age. However, he stood out not because of his family's wealth, but because of his intuition. He learned early on that to succeed in business, you need to control essential resources to dominate the market. In 1977, fresh out of school, Dangote borrowed 500,000 naira, around $30,000 at the time, from his uncle Sanusi Dantata, and began importing rice, sugar, and cement. It was the period when Nigeria's economy was expanding, fueled by oil wealth and rapid urbanization. Dangote's timing was perfect. His goods met demand, his supply chains were ruthless, and his profits multiplied. Then he made a key decision. Instead of importing goods, he began producing them. By the early 2000s, the Dangote Group transformed from a trading company into an industrial powerhouse. Dangote Cement, Dangote Sugar, and Dangote Flour Mills became well-known brands, boosting Nigeria's economy and providing jobs for its people. By 2013, he was the richest man in Africa and a billionaire known as a symbol of African success. However, was the path to greatness always smooth? Because if there was something his journey showed, it was an important truth about business. The higher you rise, the more mistakes can cost you. Soon, Dangote realized that not every idea leads to success. In the early 2000s, when Nigeria's mobile phone industry was growing quickly, Dangote saw a chance to enter the market. He applied for a mobile telecoms license to compete with major companies like MTN, Glo, and Airtel. He paid the required $20 million fee for the license. But before his company could launch, problems arose. Internal disputes, delays in getting approvals, and the high cost of building the network made the project unworkable. Dangote decided to withdraw. Later, the telecom industry became one of the most profitable in Africa, making this one of his biggest missed opportunities. However, this was just the beginning of the businessman's numerous unsuccessful ventures, as not long after came Dangote Textiles, another failed business endeavor. Not many people know this, but long before Aliko Dangote became well known for cement and sugar, the businessman tried to save Nigeria's struggling textile industry. He invested millions in Dangote Textiles to build factories that would make high-quality fabric for Nigeria and other countries. However, Nigeria faced problems with power supply, smuggling, and poor infrastructure, which ruined his plans. Also, when cheaper fabrics from China and India took over the market, Dangote could not compete with their prices anymore. So, by the mid-2000s, he quietly closed the textile division, and this marked one of his first major failures in business. It was a failure so costly that he reportedly had to sell a different venture, Liberty Merchant Bank, to cover the debts. But then, another idea hit the entrepreneur. Why not venture into flour mills? So, in 1999, Dangote started Dangote Flour Mills, and it initially succeeded. The company grew quickly and even listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange in 2008. Flour seemed to be a great addition to its sugar and salt businesses. If you're enjoying this documentary, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support enables us to continue sharing compelling stories like this one. Now, let's get back to the story. However, by the mid-2010s, the flour business started losing money. The market became crowded and smaller. More efficient mills increased competition, which cut profit margins. In 2012, Dangote gave in and sold a controlling interest to Tiger Brands from South Africa for nearly $200 million. This deal turned out poorly for Tiger Brands, which lost over $120 million due to poor management and market problems. By 2015, they completely exited Nigeria. Dangote later bought the company back for much less than he sold it. Many people may not realize that agriculture is a sector that has deeply resonated with Dangote. This passion led him to establish the Dangote Tomato Processing Factory in Kano in 2016, aiming to reduce Nigeria's dependence on imported tomato paste. This plant, a $4 billion investment, approximately $12.74 million at the time, was designed to process 1,200 tons of fresh tomatoes daily. Soon enough, the factory ran into serious problems. Local farmers couldn't supply enough raw materials, sometimes only 20% of the required capacity. Poor logistics, pest infestations, and the inconsistent power hurt production. Within a few months, the plant shut down. It reopened later, but only after years of changes and heavy losses. It is also important to note that before the successful Dangote fertilizer plant was built, there were many failed attempts. In the early 2000s, early efforts struggled because of lack of funding and unstable policies. Investors were not confident, and government subsidies messed up the fertilizer market. Dangote himself said that his first efforts in this sector didn't work as planned. It took more than 10 years, a lot of money, and a complete change in the market for him to finally succeed, showing that failure for him was not the end but just practice. At one point, the ambitious businessman thought he could start an airline. Dangote Airlines aimed to change domestic travel, but it did not succeed. It faced many regulatory challenges and issues with Nigeria's infrastructure, making it impossible to operate. In simple terms, it was dead on arrival. Competing with established airlines made the situation even tougher. The airline never took off and had to be abandoned. One thing about Nigerians is that they love holidays, but they also need reliable infrastructure. This was the main issue with Dangote's plans for tourism. He wanted to build luxury resorts and bring tourists to Nigeria's beautiful spots to make it like Dubai. However, without steady electricity and running water, even the best resort would have a hard time. Unfortunately, the project failed badly. Next came the challenge of logistics. For someone involved in transporting goods across countries, starting his own logistics firm felt like a natural step. However, bureaucratic obstacles, poor infrastructure, and frequent delays hindered this effort, showing that not even Dangote can escape the difficulties presented by Nigeria's roads. These setbacks were not minor. They included full-scale business collapses that sometimes cost hundreds of millions. However, each failure taught Dangote important lessons about Nigeria's unpredictable economy. Having money is not enough. One also needs timing, influence, and persistence. For most people, failure is a dead end. For Aliko Dangote, it became a manual, one that taught him how not to lose again. Each collapse hardened his instincts, reshaped his risk appetite, and exposed the brutal realities of doing business in Africa's most volatile economy. Started with his early ventures in textiles and telecoms. These weren't just ambition, they were about optimism. They believed that a good idea, a necessary product, would naturally thrive. But he learned the hard way that in Nigeria, business relies on power, infrastructure, and influence, not just ideas. The textile venture failed not because Nigerians stopped wearing fabric, but because the system couldn't sustain it. Epileptic power supply, weak policies, and porous borders made local production impossible. Dangote realized that without fixing the environment, he couldn't fix the business. That crucial realization is what pushed him towards cement and commodities, industries where he could control the supply chain, the pricing, and even influence government policy. And then Dangote's flour mill collapse and the Tiger brand's fiasco could have easily become permanent stains. Instead, he flipped them into a business masterclass. When Tiger brands pulled out in 2015, most expected Dangote to simply walk away. Instead, he bought back the company for less than half of what he sold it for, restructured operations, and slowly brought it back to profitability. That move showed a bigger idea. In Nigeria, patience pays off. The market rewards those who can withstand tough times, not just those who try to avoid them. When Dangote's tomato factory failed, critics mocked it. They saw it as a proof that his empire had cracks. But the truth was simpler. It was merely a timing problem. Nigeria's agricultural system wasn't ready for industrial processing. Farmers lacked incentives, and the infrastructure to move fresh produce was non-existent. So, what did Dangote do? He paused, recalibrated, and waited. By the time government reforms and local partnerships matured, the factory returned. This time, things are looking better. The same deep patience is being applied now with the Dangote oil refinery. This project has faced many delays, but is meant to bring real change. The road to Dangote oil refinery has not been easy, with issues in financing and construction. But as the saying goes, slow and steady wins the race. And this refinery, despite the delays, is finally nearing completion. Because if there's one golden rule Dangote learned from failure, it's vertical integration, the art of owning every part of your supply line. His early ventures relied on external systems he couldn't control. But in cement, sugar, and salt, he built empires where he controls everything from raw material sourcing to logistics and distribution. That's why, while others struggle with import restrictions and currency crisis, Dangote survives. He thrives. He learned to build businesses that don't depend on Nigeria's weaknesses, but exploited them by creating their own self-sufficient systems. It's easy to idolize Dangote as the billionaire who never loses. But his missteps show us something deeper. A man constantly at war with his environment. A man constantly gambling millions to prove that African industry can exist beyond oil. His failures show that even the richest in Africa battle the same demons as small entrepreneurs. Challenges such as power cuts, corruption, bad roads, and inconsistent policies. But the difference with him is that he doesn't quit. Every collapsed project became a lesson that refined his empire. Dangote didn't build his wealth on luck. He built it on learning from mistakes. When Aliko Dangote fails, it's not just a businessman taking the loss. It's a mirror held up to Nigeria itself. His setbacks are a reflection of everything broken within the nation's economy. The politics, the policies, the power, and the paralysis that stops even the wealthiest from truly thriving. Because every one of Dangote's failed ventures shared a common thread. The system works against productivity. Take the textile industry. In the 1980s, Nigeria had over 180 textile mills. Today, fewer than 30 are operational. Why? Because cheap imports flood the market while power cuts crippled local production. Dangote's textile business died because the environment made it cheaper to import fabric from China than to produce it in Kano. That's not a Dangote problem. That's a Nigerian problem. On the other hand, Dangote's Dangote flour mills struggled in part because of erratic trade policies. One month, import duties were reduced. The next, they were raised without warning. Currency fluctuations, inconsistent border controls, and political interference meant a 5-year business plan could become obsolete overnight. The World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index confirms it. Nigeria ranks near the bottom in the last published report, Doing Business 2020, which was based on data from 2019. Nigeria was ranked 131 out of 190 economies, with policy inconsistency cited as a massive barrier to growth. Dangote learned this lesson the hard way. His failures weren't because of bad ideas. They were because of bad, volatile system. Have you been thinking about investing in Nigerian real estate? But you're scared. Scared of sending money home and seeing nothing. Scared of buying a house and wondering who will manage it. Scared of being left alone after the purchase. That's why Z Realty was built. With Z Realty, every property you buy comes with full management. You're not just buying a house, you are buying a system that works. Z Realty help you find credible, income-generating properties, and everything is fully managed for you. From houses for short lets to farms for agriculture. From listings and bookings to cleaning and maintenance. Each month, your returns are sent straight to you. No stress, no chasing anyone. You buy it, we manage it. You earn every month. Even if you are abroad, this changes everything. Own from anywhere, earn from home with Z Realty. Thank you Z Realty for sponsoring this video. Take a look at Dangote's tomato factory in Kano, an initiative that should have been a symbol of agricultural revolution. Instead, it became a cautionary tale. When it launched, the factory could process thousands of tons, but farmers couldn't deliver enough supply. Why? Because poor roads, lack of storage, and middlemen exploitation meant more than 45% of tomatoes rotted before reaching the plant. In essence, Dangote was trying to industrialize inside a country that hasn't even built the basics. You can't build a skyscraper on sand, and that's what Nigeria's infrastructure is: soft, sinking sand. Ironically, the same system that sabotaged Dangote's early ventures now shields his later successes. His rise in cement and sugar didn't just come from innovation. It came from mastering Nigeria's political economy. He learned the ropes of navigating power, lobbying for favorable tariffs, and built strong relationships that protected his empire from the chaos that destroyed others. Critics call this monopoly, but as for the admirers, they see it as a strategy. Either way, it proves that in Nigeria, you don't just play the market, you play the government. That realization is what separates the Dangote who lost millions in textiles from the Dangote who built a $20 billion refinery. But here is the main question. If Dangote, who has plenty of money, connections, and resources, could still fail often, what hope does the average Nigerian entrepreneur have? Dangote's failures are not just bad luck or wrong decisions. They show that the country makes it hard to succeed. This is a country where the ports delay raw materials for weeks. Power cuts drive up production costs. Corruption taxes every transaction, and policy can change with a handshake. Nigeria will continue to produce dreamers whose hopes are crushed by red tapes until we address the country's deep-rooted problems. So, is Dangote's story only about his successes, or does it reflect his struggles in a challenging economy? Each failed business becomes part of Nigeria's ongoing narrative of interrupting potentials. We often think of billionaires as perfect, as if all their decisions are successful. But Dangote's failures, like with tomatoes and textiles, show that even the strong can fail when the system is weak. This might be the key insight. In Nigeria, being successful doesn't mean someone is brilliant. It shows they can endure. Dangote didn't succeed because the system helped him. He succeeded by figuring out how to navigate around the system. This approach isn't a lasting solution for a country. It's a way to survive. If Nigeria wants more successful entrepreneurs like Dangote, it needs to make life easier for them. The country should stop valuing connections over skills and create a space where good ideas can grow. The hard truth is that for every Dangote who makes it, there are many talented people who struggle and fail because of the system. As long as things stay the same, Nigeria will continue to celebrate individual success stories while overlooking the institutional failures that make these successes so rare. Dangote's failure are part of his story. They show us that progress in Nigeria does not happen smoothly. It struggles, it hurts, and it suffers. But these experiences also provide lessons. Even the richest man in Africa did not always win, but he never stopped investing in Nigeria. Maybe that's the kind of boldness needed to change a nation.